Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Sinner6x3, and I just had an idea for a new video series I wanted to try out. Basically, what I've always found out, which is a lot is confusing to some people, is the Bible. Different stories in it, like how could they possibly be true? Like Adam and Eve, or Noah's Ark, or Moses and the 10 plagues, or just Jesus in general, the whole crucifixion, the miracles thing, and all that. So what I decided to do is I'm going to take those stories and I'm going to twist them around and re-edit them to make them make more sense, to make them more modern. That even though I don't believe necessarily in the Bible and I'm not a religious person, I was raised religiously and I understand. I have a decent understanding of the Bible and of the stories in them. Or in it, excuse me. So anyway, what I wanted to do, like I said, was take a more realist approach to these stories and deliver them to you how I believe they originally happened, and not how prophets and scripture writers wanted to portray them. So anyway, volume 1 of this is going to be, Adam and Eve, respectively, because they are one of the first stories in the Bible that a lot of people find hard to believe. First, I want to give the biblical interpretation of their story, and then I'll give my interpretation of said story. Basically, it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and earth. He created the animals and all this good stuff, and then he created man. He created a man. He created a man called Adam. And Adam helped God name all the animals, and then Adam became lonely, and God noticed this and felt bad for him. So he took a rib from Adam and created Eve with it, created a woman for him. They were going to mate. And they were told to be fruitful and fill the earth. But they were told, out of everything, the whole world was theirs. They could fill it up with babies and procreate and enjoy the animals and all the fruits and vegetables they wanted, and just have a jolly good time here on planet Earth. But there was this one tree that they couldn't eat from. They could go near it, really, but I mean, like, it was kind of forbidden, and they couldn't go near this tree, and they couldn't eat from it. They were like, okay, cool. Well, one day Adam was out, tending his crops, and Eve was out by herself, probably picking some oranges or whatnot. And a serpent, talking serpent, came down to her and started speaking to her and let her know that there's really no good reason why she can't eat from the tree. That it was the tree of knowledge, it was the tree of good and bad, and that God didn't want her to eat from the tree because she would gain the knowledge of God, and she would know the difference between good and bad, and she would no longer need him. And God was a selfish God, and he didn't want that, and he didn't want Adam and Eve to have that knowledge, and he was being selfish, and he convinced her to eat from the tree, so she did. Now, if it was just left at that, then we'd be in a whole lot better shape now, according to Christians. But she went and got Adam, and she then, because obviously she's the only woman on earth, convinced him that it was a good idea for him to also eat from the tree of knowledge. They both ate from the tree of knowledge, and good and bad, and what happened was they looked down and noticed that they were naked and became ashamed, and they made clothes for themselves. God then, being a vengeful God, was very pissed off at them and shunned them from the Garden of Eden and told them to get out, that he would not kill them now, but their punishment would be that they would have to grow old, suffer, and die. That was their punishment. They still were allowed to have children and procreate and fill the earth and all that, but they could no longer have the blessing of everlasting life. And so they were banned, they were shunned, and then they had children, and they filled the earth to the 6 billion that it is today. Okay, so that's the biblical basic. It's not, every little detail of it, but that's the basic biblical story of Adam and Eve. Now, this is my interpretation. Okay. Back a couple thousand years, give or take, there was a guy named Adam, and there was a woman named Eve. They were both slaves for a wealthy man. They were his only two slaves, and in essence they met and they fell in love. And they were both gardeners, and they both tended his crops for him. And he had a big palace where he sat high above and always watched over them from the watchtower, to make sure that they were doing everything right. And he told them that, you know what, you guys are slaves. I'm not going to pay you anything because I own you. But you guys can feel free to eat from any of the crops that you want. You guys can have a carrot or a radish or an apple or an orange if you want, a banana, whatnot. Smell the flowers. Enjoy yourselves out there. I mean, they're still slaves, but he didn't want them to suffer too bad. But he just told him there's this one tree that's been in his family for generations, and he would really appreciate it if it just stayed in its original form. He didn't want any pruning done to it. He didn't want anything picked off of it. He just wanted this tree left alone. This tree was very old, and it had been in his family since he was a very young boy, and it meant a lot to him. It was a very sacred tree to him, and he didn't want anyone eating off of it except for people from his particular family. So these slaves, Adam and Eve, they were just like, well, okay, that makes sense. So they went out there and blah, 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 and, just like telling a little kid you can't push the red button, or telling a kid you can't have a cookie before dinner. The temptation got too much for him, and they were just like, well, what's up with that? Is that, the fruit of that tree must be delicious if he doesn't want us to have any of it. They didn't understand the symbolic or the sentimental value of the tree from this king, or this wealthy man. So Eve was like, you know what? He's not going to get that mad if I just take a bite of it, just try a little bite. So she rationalized it in her head, and she went over there and she had a bite of the fruit. And it probably was delicious. It was probably some mango or something, or pomegranate, like something like really a good exotic taste that she just never tasted before. It was really good. And she ran over and she told Adam, you have to taste this. This is really, really good. It's from the tree over there. I picked one fruit. I cut it in half. Here, have a little bit of it. It's no big deal. He's not going to see. He's not going to notice one little fruit missing off of it. Well, unbeknownst to them, the whole time he was watching them, and he did see them from the watchtower pick that. He did watch Eve pick that fruit from that tree, and he did watch her eat it. Well, he then got very angry at them and said, I gave you all this, I gave you a place to sleep, I gave you a place to stay, a warm place to stay, I gave you steady work, I kept you fed, and I told you guys can have anything you wanted on the entire grounds, and this is how you repay. I ask you not to do one thing. Don't eat from my tree. This is my family's tree. This is a sacred tree to me. This is a very symbolic tree to me. And you guys betrayed my trust, and you betrayed my wishes. And unlike most wealthy men who had slaves that betrayed him, instead of kill them, he was like, you know what? Yeah, I did give you a good thing, but now I'm going to take it away. And you guys are just going to wander. You guys can just wander the desert and find your own way, because I don't want to deal with you anymore. I'm no longer going to take care of you. So he banished them. Now, in the biblical story, there's two angels that are sitting in front of the Garden of Eden, and they have swords. There's a spinning sword, if you will, that is keeping Adam and Eve out. I forgot to put that part in. But anyway, so obviously there was a gate to this place, or a brick wall or something like that, with some kind of a fortress, a moat maybe. And he obviously, the wealthy man, had some knights or some soldiers of some kind with maces or swords or something of that nature that was spinning around, that kept Adam and Eve at bay and kept them away and made them shun away. Anyway, and that's basically how I believe it happened. And just through time and it's like the telephone game, a story gets said and whispered in someone's ear, and by the time it gets down to the group of 20 kids, it is a completely different story. In all fiction stories, there is always a little bit of fact in them, and I believe that most of the stories in the Bible are based in fact, but have been so grossly mistranslated or misrepresented by the writers that they're taken as being myth or whatnot. And yes, most of the stories in the Bible are myths, but I'm going to go ahead and give this one a truth turnaround. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and there's always going to be more to come.